If it had been those horrible past days, he would have collapsed at the knees on hearing the amount of the rent. Dr. Pal said to the blanket seller, "This man is one of my oldest friends. I like him very much, you know."
"Yes, I know, said the other. "I could guess so, otherwise you would not have brought him here. Here is the key."
He held out a brass key for Dr. Pal to take. He asked Margaya, "What may be your line of business?" "Well, sort of banking," Margaya said without conviction, fearing at the word bank these people would at once visualize shining counters and all the gaudy ornamentation.
"It'd be more simple to call it money lending," said the other from within the blankets. "It is not merely lending," Margaya essayed to explain. "It is not so cheap as that. I also try to help people about money whenever they are in difficulties."
Margaya started on his oration. "Money is..." He paused and turning to Dr. Pal, asked, "You have not told me your friend's name." It was more to put the other in his place.
"Oh, we call him Guru Raj," Dr. Pal said. Margaya began his sentence again. "Guru Raj, money is the greatest factor in life and the most ill-used.
People don't know how to tend it, how to manure it, how to water it, how to make it grow, and when to pluck its flowers and when to pluck its fruits. What most people now do is to try and eat the plant itself." The other roared with laughter.
"I say, you seem to be a very great thinker. How well you speak, how well you have understood all these matters. You are indeed a rare man."
"Where have you been carrying on your business all these days?" "Mine is the sort of business that searches me out. I didn't have to move out of my house at all."
"But you see, it gives me no rest with so many people always coming in. You must never allow your business transactions to invade your home, that will simply shatter the home life," said Guru Raj. "I have a son studying in high school," said Margaya.
He liked the feel of the word. Studying in high school. He felt very proud of Balu for the moment, but at the same time he felt a tinge of pity at heart.
He had been too severe with him during the day. "Oh, if children are studying, it will simply ruin their time to have visitors at all hours," the other said. After more such polite and agreeable talk, he said, "All right, sir, I wish you all success."
"May God help you. You may please to go now. I cannot offer you a seat in this wretched shop."
"It is my fate to sit here amidst the flies, and why should I bother you with them too? And it is not proper to make you stand. I will come and listen to your talk in your own shop, some day." It was midday and all the stalls in the market were dull and drowsy.
Fruit sellers were dozing before their heaps. Some loafers were desultorily hanging about. Stray calves were standing idly near a shop in which green plantain leaves were for sale.
A seller of betel leaves held out a bundle saying, "Finest betel leaves, sir, flavored with camphor," applying the usual epithets that betel sellers employ for recommending their wares. Pal took some, haggled for a moment, and paid the price. He stuffed the bundle of betel leaves into his pocket.
He stopped for a minute at the next stall to buy a yard of string jasmine. "Excuse me," he said. "These are necessary to keep the peace at home, necessary adjuncts for domestic harmony, you know."
"Oh!" Margaya exclaimed, and decided to ignore any special significance he might have put into the words domestic harmony. "You are no longer alone?"
Margaya asked. "No. Are you married?"
"No. Are you going to be married?" "Not yet."
Margaya was mystified. "Where is your house? Are you still in that garden?"
No. I had to leave it long ago. Someone bought it, and has been farming on a large scale there."
He cleared the place of all the weeds and undergrowth, which included me. But he appeared to be a nice man. "I have been so far away and so busy."
"I have a house. I live in an outhouse in Lawley Extension. Someone else is in the main building. You must come to my house someday." They reached 10 Market Road, and at once Margaya was enchanted.
He had always visualized that he would get some such place. The Malgudi gutter ran below his shop with a mild rumble, and not so mild smell. But Margaya either did not notice or did not mind it, being used to it in his own home.
Margaya's blood was completely the city man's and reveled in crowds, noise and bustle. The moment he looked out and saw the stream of people and traffic flowing up and down the road, he felt that he was in the right place. A poet would perhaps have felt exasperated by the continuous din, but to Margaya it was like a background music to his own thoughts. There was a row of offices and shops opposite, insurance agencies, local representatives of newspapers, hair-cutting saloons, some film distributors, a lawyer's chamber, and a hardware shop, into which hundreds of people were going every day.
Margaya calculated that if he could at least filter 20 out of that number for his own purposes, he would be more than well off. In about a year he could pass on to the grade of people who were wealthy and not merely rich. He drew a lot of distinction between the two.
A rich man, according to his view, was just one caste below the man of wealth. Riches any hardworking fool could attain by some watchfulness, while acquiring wealth was an extraordinary specialized job. It came to persons who had on them the grace of the goddess fully and who could use their wits.
He was a specialist in money, and his mind always ran on lines of scientific inquiry whenever money came in question. He differentiated with great subtlety between money, riches, wealth, and fortune. It was most important people should not mistake one for the other.
Next to the subject of money, the greatest burden on his mind was his son. As he sat in his shop and spoke to his clients, he forgot for the time being the rest of the world, but the moment he was left alone he started thinking of his son. The boy had failed in his matriculation exam, and that embittered him very much. He wondered what he should do with him now.
Whenever he thought of it, his heart sank within him. God has blessed me with everything under the sun. I need not bother about anything else in life, but. He could not tell people, my son is only 15 and he has already passed into college. The son had passed that stage 2 years ago.
2 attempts and yet no good. Margaya had engaged 3 home tutors, one for every 2 subjects, and it cost him quite a lot in salaries. He arranged to have him fed specially with nutritive food during his examination periods.
He bought a lot of fruits, and compelled his wife to prepare special food, always saying, the poor boy is preparing for his examination. He must have enough stamina to stand the strain. He forbade his wife to speak loudly at home.
Have you no consideration for the young man who is studying? He was in agonies on examination days. He escorted him up to the examination hall in Albert College.
Before parting from him at the sounding of the bell, he always gave him advice. Don't get frightened, write calmly and fearlessly, and don't come away before it is time. But all this was worth nothing because the boy had nothing to write after the first half hour, which he spent in scrawling fantastic designs on his answer book. He hated the excitement of an examination and was sullenly resentful of the fact that he was being put through a most unnecessary torment.
He abruptly rose from his seat and went over to a restaurant nearby. His father had left with him a lot of cash in view of the trying times he was going through. He ate all the available things in the restaurant, bought a packet of cigarettes, sought a secluded corner away from the prying eyes of his elders on the bank of the river behind the college.
Sat down and smoked the entire packet, dozed for a while, and returned home at 5 in the evening. The moment he was sighted, his mother asked, "Have you written your examination well?" He made a wry face and said, "Leave me alone."
He hated to be reminded of the examination. But they would not let him alone. His mother put before him milk, and fruits, and the special edibles she had made to sustain him in his ordeal.
He made a wry face and said, "Take it away, I cannot eat anything." At this she made many sounds of sympathy and said that he must get over the strain by feeding himself properly. It was at this moment that his father returned home, after closing his office early, and hastening away in a jutka.
All day as he counted money, his and other people's, a corner of his mind was busy with the examination. "Oh, God, please enlighten my son's mind so that he may answer and get good marks," he secretly prayed. The moment he saw his son he said, "I am sure you have done very well, my boy."
"How have you done?" The boy sat in a corner of the house with a cheerless look on his face. Margaya put it down to extreme strain, and said soothingly, "You stayed in the hall throughout?"
That was for him an indication of his son's performance. Whatever was the son's reply, he got the correct answer very soon, in less than 8 weeks, when the results came out. At first Margaya raved, "Balu has done very well, I know.
Someone has been working off a grudge." Then he felt like striking his son, but restrained himself, for the son was 4 inches taller as he stood hanging his head with his back to the wall, and Margaya feared that he might retaliate. So he checked himself, and from a corner the mother watched, silently with resignation and fear, the crisis developing between father and son.
She had understood long before that the boy was not interested in his studies and that he attached no value to them, but it was no use telling that to her husband. She pursued what seemed to her the best policy and allowed events to shape themselves. She knew that matters were coming to a conclusion now, and she was a helpless witness to a terrific struggle between two positive-minded men, for she no longer had any doubt that the son was a grown-up man.
She covered her mouth with her fingers, and with her chin on her palm stood there silently watching. Margia said, "Every little idiot has passed his SSLC exam. Are you such a complete fool?"
"Don't abuse me, father," said the boy, whose voice had recently become gruff. It had lost, as his mother noticed, much of the original softness. The more she saw him, the more she was reminded of her own father in his younger days, exactly the same features, the same gruffness, and the same severity.
People had been afraid to speak to her father even when he was in the sweetest temper, for his face had a severity without any relation to his mood. She saw the same expression on the boy's face now. The boy's look was set and grim.
His lips were black with cigarettes which she knew he smoked. He often smelt of them when he came home. But she kept this secret knowledge to herself since she didn't like to set up her husband against him. She understood that the best way to attain some peace of mind in life was to maintain silence. Ultimately, she found that things resolved themselves in the best manner possible or fizzled out. She found that it was only speech which made existence worse every time.
Lately, after he had become affluent, she found that her husband showed excessive emphasis, rightly or wrongly, in all matters. She realized that he had come to believe that whatever he did was always right. She did her best not to contradict him. She felt that he strained himself too much in his profession, and that she ought not to add to his burden. So if he sometimes raved over the mismanagement of the household, she just did not try to tell him that it was otherwise.
She served him his food silently, and he himself discovered later what was right and what was wrong and confessed it to her. Now more than in any other matter she practiced this principle where their son was concerned. She knew it would be no use telling her husband not to bother the son over his studies.
That it would be no use asking him to return home at 7:30 each day to sit down to his books with his home teachers. He simply would not return home before 9. It was no use shouting at him for it. It only made one's throat smart and provided a scene for the people next door to witness.
She left it all to resolve itself. Once or twice she attempted to tell the son to be more mindful of his father's wishes and orders, but he told her to shut up. She left him alone.
And she left her husband alone. She attained thereby great tranquility in practical everyday life. Now she watched the trouble brewing between the two as if it all happened behind a glass screen.
The father asked in a tone full of wrath, "How am I to hold up my head in public?" The boy looked up detached, as if it were a problem to be personally solved by the father, in which he was not involved. Margia shouted again, "How am I to hold up my head in public?
What will they think of me? What will they say of my son?" The boy spoke with a quiet firmness, as if expressing what immediately occurred to the mother herself.
She felt at once a great admiration for him. He said in a gruff tone, "How is it their concern?" Margia wrung his hands in despair and clenched his teeth.
What the boy said seemed to be absolutely correct. "You are no son of mine. I cannot tolerate a son who brings such disgrace on the family."
The boy was pained beyond words. "Don't talk nonsense, father," he said. Margia was stupefied.
He had no idea that the boy could speak so much. Talking till now was only a one-way business, and he had taken it for granted that the boy could say nothing for himself. He raved, "You are talking back to me. Are you mad?"
The boy burst into tears and wailed, "If you don't like me, send me out of the house." Margia studied him with surprise. He had always thought of Balu as someone who was spoken to and never one who could speak with the same emphasis as himself.
He was offended by the boy's aggressive manner. He was moved by the sight of the tears on his face. He was seized with a confusion of feelings.
He found his eyes smarting with tears and felt ashamed of it before his son and before that stony-faced woman who stood at the doorway of the kitchen and relentlessly watched. Her eyes seemed to watch unwaveringly, with a fixed stare. So still was she that Margia feared lest she should be in a cataleptic state.
He now turned his wrath on her. "It's all you're doing. You have been too lenient.
You have spoiled him beyond redemption. You with your The boy checked his tears and interrupted him.
Mother has not spoilt me, nor anyone else. Why should anyone spoil me? There is too much talk in this house.
That's what's wrong here, Margia declared, and closed the incident by going in to change and attend to his other activities. The boy slunk away, out of sight. In that small house it was impossible to escape from one another, and the boy slipped out of the front door.
The mother knew he would return, after his father had slept, bringing into the home the smell of cigarette smoke. Margia stayed awake almost all night. When the boy sneaked back after his rounds and pushed the door open, it creaked slightly on its hinges and he at once demanded, "Who is there?"
Who is there? Balu answered mildly, "It's myself, father."